Hi, I'm Lisa Unger and welcome to Tiki Talk. Today I am here with one of my favorite writers. I'm actually a little bit choked up about it, Jeff Klinkenberg. Thank you for being here, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, dearest
Lisa.
one, for having me here. What a cool thing.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I mean, and this is not perfect for you, the Tiki Hut in Clearwater, Florida. You have sort of, well, Jeff, for those few people who don't know who he is sort of the culture beat reporter for the now Tampa Bay Times, formerly St. Pete Times. Most of us will always think of it as the St. Pete Times, but we're working on it. And his column is Real Florida. And through his sort of amazing series of essays, you know, sometimes funny, sometimes poignant, always brilliant, he has sort of become, to me, and I know to a lot of people, the voice of Tampa Bay and Florida in general.
Well, how nice of you to say so.
Well, that's so true.
And it is. I have to tell you this. It is the all-time gig.
Yeah, I was going to say, what an awesome job.
The president of the company a couple weeks ago, his name is Paul Tash. He said something about it was along the lines of, "That's quite a scam you have." And I was sort of like, I thought I had fooled him all these years, and he knew it all along.
Yeah.
But you know, it's sort of the, some people may remember like Charles Kraut from CBS.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
Except, you know, the stories are longer.
Right.
I couldn't read them in like 90 seconds.
Right.
But you know, Pensacola to Key West, and you know, I really do meet some interesting people who are up to interesting things.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to do that. And also, you know, I get to eat a lot of fried chicken and cornbread
bits and whatnot.
So,
yeah.
so
it keeps you healthy.
So actually, probably more people in the newsroom envy that.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, what a blessing to be able to write about something for which you have such an obvious passion. And you've had this sort of passion for Florida since you were a kid, right?
Since I was a kid. And the thing about it is that when I was a kid, and I grew up in Miami,
yes,
was most newspapers, and there were more then than there are now,
yeah, of course,
had somebody like me.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was like some old, you know, old-timer, of course. That's me now.
No, of course not.
But somebody who was interpreting Florida for all these people who were moving down in the 50s.
Right.
Because Florida was,
it's
you
like
know,
a boom, like the big boom.
Exactly. After World War II, that
right.
happened.
Right.
So you had people sort of like me, you know, who would tell people, here's what, this is the bird you're hearing at night or whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up reading those people. There was a guy in the Miami Herald named Nixon Smiley, who did that for many years. There was a guy in Stewart who I really love named Ernie Lyons, kind of folksy. He was also the editor of the Stewart News.
Okay.
The Miami News, which is where I started when I was 16.
That was your first reporting job when you were 16?
Yeah, just
Aww.
answering the phones, but every once in a while I got to do something, you know.
And did you at that time already have a passion to write? Were you already wanting that?
I did. I could show you sometime. I
wish you would.
My mother, my mother saved things.
Yeah.
The astonishing Beatrice Mary Grace O'Donnell saved things. And I have like this book I did when I was about 6 called Davy Crockett and the Alligators.
Oh, nice.
Illustrated too.
Illustrated.
I was a Renaissance man even then.
Wow, amazing.
And I was doing like neighborhood newspapers.
Yeah.
And I still have some of those.
Oh, really?
You know, circulation
You should bronze those. Well, yeah. How many more do you need?
Because I was doing them like monks. You know,
Right,
you do
exactly.
one and then you'd have to do the second one. So we didn't have a printing press. So I was doing those, and I was born in Chicago, but my parents moved to Miami when I was 2, which was 1951. And my dad was a musician at the time. He was a piano player, and just like a lot of people moved to Florida, they're sort of following a dream.
Yes.
And his was, and he'd been a musician before the war, and then after the war. And he had some gigs, and he had a band called the Ernie Bergen Orchestra. Called himself Ernie Bergen, so it could fit on the marquee. And you know, he played some nightclubs. We lived in Key West for a while. But if you know any musicians, about 99.9% eventually have to get a day job.
Right.
It's just the nature of it. And so he did. But one of the things, and you know, my parents were from Chicago. They were city people. My dad fell in love with Florida immediately.
Did your mom?
My mom hated it.
Did she?
She, you know, it was and of all things, they moved to Miami in the summer of '51.
Oh.
It's beastly hot. No air conditioning.
No air conditioning. I remember we talked about that once.
Rich people, that was something for rich people, air conditioning. Yeah. And it's like the rainy season has just started, so you can like cut the air. It's like what I imagine Venus, the atmosphere of Venus must be like. And you know, my poor mother, you know, she opens a silverware door and like roaches would boil out. Usually when like her mother was visiting or something. So she never warmed up to it. But she was a classic Irish storyteller, though, and I mean, she would, and she was nosy, and so she'd go down the block and come back to dish about everybody. So she had that, you know, she
had that gift, the gift of story.
And my dad was, you know, let's go fishing. He was an endurance swimmer, and he used to like swim between these two piers in Miami Beach that were about a mile. And when I was old enough, and I was a decent swimmer as a little boy, he would give me a mask and a snorkel, and I'd hang onto the back of his swimming trunks, and he'd swim this mile, and then sometimes we'd walk it back, sometimes we'd swim back. But you'd see, you know, it was like swimming in an aquarium. And for me, I mean, that was like the Florida being stamped on me. Right.
Yeah, I feel like Ocean's having a lot of those moments. My daughter, Ocean, you know, there's just something about Florida as this magical place to grow up where you're so close to nature, you know, just on a daily basis.
Exactly. I mean, it's, you know, it can be the lizards.
Right, the lizards are a big feature of our life.
And you know, you've got, you know, you live on the water, so you've got
dolphins every day.
Dolphins, great blue herons, manatees.
Yeah, herons, of course, you know, snowy egrets. We have river otters, or sea otters that come onto we sometimes find them in our pool.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Isn't
absolutely.
that cool?
Isn't that crazy?
So, it's, you know, and I grew up exactly like she did.
Yeah.
We lived about a block from a canal.
Yeah.
We'd go there and there'd be manatees. And
yeah.
Didn't see any alligators when I was a kid, or rarely, because they'd really been hit hard by hunting and poaching. But maybe when I was a teenager, I started to see alligators.
Right.
But now, I mean, the thing about Florida is 19 million people.
Yeah.
Wonderful universities.
Yeah.
Restaurants, art galleries, professional sports, culture.
Yeah.
But we know that if you go swimming in the wrong place, you might be eaten by a dinosaur. And while, you know, I always say I don't wish that on anybody, it does make us a different place.
Yeah, it does.
Bears, panthers, crocodiles now.
Absolutely.
Coming up as far as Pinellas County on this coast. So it makes it a very interesting place.
I think that's one of the things I love about it the most. Well, absolutely, to write. Yeah, I mean, because in New York City, which is where I'm from, I mean, there's a little bit of that too. You know, there's all the magical stuff of New York City, you know, all the fancy, glitzy, amazing, you know, center of the universe stuff. And then there's this really dark, scary underbelly. Yeah. Which I just love, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Florida too. You know, it's all sunshine, you know, except that it's not. And it's, you know, such an interesting dichotomy, and something that's so fun to explore in fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah. By the way, I love going to New York too.
Yeah, I know you do.
It's you know, I'm the city
We've
mouse.
been to New York together a couple
city
times.
rat, country mouse. I really am. You know.
Yeah,
I
a
love
little bit
doing
of
that.
both. It's good. It's a good balance. A really good balance. So let's talk a little bit about some of the books. I have two of them here. Pilgrim in the Land of Alligators. Was this the first one?
No, it was the last
Oh, Land of
one.
Flowers was the first one, right?
Boy, they go back even farther than that.
Do they?
A couple of them are out of print. The first one was called Blind Dog in a Smokehouse.
Oh, that's a good title. That's a great title.
And I got the title from, I was writing a story about this guy from Montgomery, Alabama. I can't think of his name now, Ray something, but he's the guy who had started these bass fishing tournaments in the 70s. Mm-hmm. That started out as like a local, let's do this at the lake or whatever, and it became this like a big national phenomenon and corporation.
Yeah.
And made lots of money, and it was like the Super Bowl of bass fishing. Well, I was interviewing him once, and I said, Ray, his name, Ray Scott, I said, Ray, how did you feel when you realized the potential of this endeavor? And he said, Jeff, I felt like a blind dog in a smokehouse. And I just love that. It's one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard.
That is amazing.
But when I thought about it, I realized as a writer,
There's a lot of nuances.
I was like that too, because when I started writing about Florida, I wanted to tell these stories.
Yeah.
And there were all these people that had never been written about, because they weren't what we call news.
Right.
So I was that blind dog too, and you'd snap here and you get something meaty, and snap there and get a ham hock or whatever.
Right. Right.
So the first book I ever did, and it was published by the St. Pete Times.
Oh, and let me just say quickly about the books. What I love about the books, as opposed to, or in addition to what I love about your columns, is that the columns come and you don't always get to read them, and then maybe it's a couple days or a week before you read one. But in the book, when you see them all together in one place, and that's mainly what these are, right? They're just the collections of.
Yeah, they're tweaked somewhat, but
in the books, it's like this beautiful mosaic. Like, this is the first one that I read. This is the first one of yours that I read, and it was such a great thing, because I was just at the time, like, sort of, I'd been here for a couple of years, and I was just sort of starting to understand all the different layers of the area, and what these books kind of do are just create this mosaic, this like Florida mosaic, which is some of it's dark, and some of it's beautiful, and some of it's funny and quirky, and it's just they're such great books.
Well, thanks.
Seasons of
Real Florida,
and then the one that's upcoming.
The one that's coming up is called, and it's not like I always want to have alligators in the cover,
but they're
in the
they're
title.
so important.
But it's called Alligators in B flat.
And I'm sure all your many fans are waiting for it, as I know I am. And
well, thank you. I hope so.
And thank you for joining me on Tiki Talk.
Tiki Talk.
Yeah,
all right,
Tiki
thank
Talk.
you. You're the best.
You are.
No, you are.
No,
It's
you are.